The drama between Steven Crowder and the Daily Wire is ongoing, and it's heating up. Last night, Steven Crowder put out a video in which he played parts of a phone call he recorded with the co-CEO of the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring. Jeremy Boring was presumably unaware of this recording, and according to Candace Owens, who was on the show last night, the phone call was made about a week ago. The big news is that we learned last night Steven Crowder registered his domain StopBigCon December 12th, 2022, and called Jeremy only in this past week, which many people are saying shows that he planned on setting up Jeremy in this phone call to try and make him look bad. And a lot of people are now coming out and saying, like, holy crap, you recorded your friend secretly, et cetera, et cetera. I want to first tell you why this story is important. First, I'll tell you why it's important for me, why I'm kind of obsessed with it and really want to talk about it. This is the industry that I work in. It's the industry that I've worked in for a decade plus. It involves things that I've dealt with personally, things that I think need to be fixed, things that I think Crowder's actually right about, certain things. But ultimately, this is about the future of how we construct a counterculture, push back on the establishment, and thus, this is getting pretty tough. I like Crowder a lot. I think Crowder's extremely important. I think the work he's doing, especially considering you need someone who is an irreverent figure, who is also serious. And what I mean by that is Steven can do parodies that will make you laugh. He can do, a Saving Private Ryan bit. He can do parody songs, and he can create a cultural force like Change My Mind, a meme. These ideas that persist. He can be serious about it too. At the same time, the Daily Wire has done a lot. They produce a lot. They're a big machine. I view them as highly mechanized in such a way that I wouldn't want to run my business that way or be contractually, transactionally working with the Daily Wire. However, I think the Daily Wire is a massive net positive. I think there's things about how they do business that I don't like, but that's their business. They're allowed to do how they want. And I think in a lot of ways, I may just be a idealistic, young, naive individual. I find myself kind of in the middle between the battle between Crowder and the Daily Wire, in that Crowder is staunchly ideological, saying you can't run contracts this way, man, especially with up and coming young stars. And he's got a point that I want to get into in a bit. At the same time, I run a business. I know exactly why Jeremy Boring does what he does. He doesn't want to get stabbed in the back and have the company burned to the ground. Now me, I run things fairly ideologically here, and we've been stabbed in the back over and over and over again, and it is so brutal. I'm not sure Steven understands what it takes to run a business at this level, and there's a reason why we are a lot smaller than the Daily Wire. And there's a reason why the Daily Wire is the dominant force. It's obvious. Look at how they run their business in ways that Crowder and I might not appreciate. Crowder much more so than I, but it makes the Daily Wire powerful. And as such, the Daily Wire is then able to start pushing back on the Hollywood industry wokeness. And I think, just to shout out, obviously, What is a Woman as a documentary is tremendously important. But here's where it gets tough for me. Steven Crowder secretly recorded Jeremy Boring, and that is a trust-shattering moment that cannot be ignored. I mean, even some of, the Quartering's been defending Steven Crowder extensively, but Steven Crowder recorded Jeremy Boring. So, okay, I want to make sure those who don't understand the bigger picture here I can help you understand this. Steven Crowder has 6 million subscribers. He's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, personality in conservative media and alternative independent media, two different spheres that overlap. The Daily Wire is a powerful machine that, someone made a really great, someone super chatted us last night on Timcast IRL. They said, Steven Crowder is a rebel who challenges the system. The Daily Wire are rebels within the system. And I look at it like, I want the Daily Wire to succeed. I want movies to not be woke. I want comics, video games, music to not be woke. I want these personalities to succeed. I don't really like how the Daily Wire does business to a certain degree, but I respect how successful they are. And the way I put it the other day is, if someone said, I'm going to rebuild Disney from the ground up, I'd be like, that sounds awful. And then they go, but It's going to be pushing the ideas of meritocracy, individuality, liberty, traditional family. I'd be like, okay, now you're speaking my language. I'm not going to do a deal where I work with you, but I think it's great you guys are doing what you're doing. I'm going to do things the way I see it. This is the difference, I suppose, between me and Crowder. I don't like the idea of these hard contracts like the Daily Wire does. I understand why they do them. But anyway, I digress. The core of this segment and the core of this story is about how are we going to fight back in the culture war? What are we going to build? And can we even do it? And thus Crowder is angry with the Daily Wire, the biggest player in the field, because they're basically running like a Hollywood institution. Granted, their values are substantially better. Steven Crowder wants to create something new and ideological that is, well, it's idealistic. Things that I actually kind of agree with. Agree with a lot in terms of contracting. I don't agree with recording the phone call. And, you know, I've talked to Crowder a bit. Let me show you the backlash, because I don't want to make it all about just my opinion. First, let me show you what's happening in the space. I know it's a bit of internet drama, and I normally don't like to do drama stuff, but this is, it's about the fabric of running these businesses. And I will just say outright, I understand the Daily Wire's position. I don't like how these businesses operate. Obviously, I worked for Fusion, the Disney Univision joint venture, but I also don't think Steven Crowder understands how businesses operate in terms of making this stuff function at such a high level. And I'll get into that in great detail, the things that I have to deal with, trying to be more idealistic than realistic, and then dealing with those pitfalls. But I'll throw it over to Viva Fry, and I'll show you community reaction, because Crowder's actually getting some pushback on his own contracting. Steven Crowder has been accused of holding an individual that used to work with him, not Gay Jared, under contract so that he can't come out and talk about what's going on. And another individual came out and said that he was an up-and-coming young star producing on social media, and actually Crowder's team came and took from him his social media. Now, I want to say this. I'm a big fan of Crowder. I like the guy. He needs to have his opportunity to come and express himself. Candace Owens was booked on the show a month and a half ago. Just so happens the drama lights up. She's here. She goes off. Interestingly, after Candace Owens stated her case and made points about why she thinks Crowder's in the wrong, the polling we saw started to shift. It was like 80% in favor of Crowder, started to shift, and now people are tweeting, you know what, actually, I don't know if I agree with Crowder at this point. Crowder is going to be here on Monday. Wish we could have got him in today or sooner. I don't think Crowder's a bad guy. Candace Owens said she thinks he's doing this just for the money. I don't agree with that. Crowder is a rich guy. He doesn't need to do this just for the money. That, to me, is silly. I think Crowder wants to go to war, and the Daily Wire wants to reform. And that's where I'm at. I'm a reformer, not a revolutionary. Crowder is being a revolutionary. I respect it. You know, that sentiment is needed. But I look at it like this. Is the Daily Wire getting us victories on the battlefield? Yes. Are they running straight through the battlefield and trying to storm down the enemy gates? No. Crowder wants to do that. I don't know if that's a workable strategy, but I understand why the blitz is a working strategy. And I understand why the control, for those that are fans of Magic the Gathering, I mean, this may be esoteric, but I'll just put it this way. Steven Crowder is trying to play aggro. He's trying to play red, and the Daily Wire is trying to play blue. If any of you understand what that means, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I don't understand. But basically what I'm saying is, in Magic, the red style play is very, very fast, very, very aggressive, storming. The blue style play is build up your resources, start gaining control of the board until you own the whole thing, and then push your enemies out. Both work, and both can work against each other. So here's Viva Fry. Steven Crowder posted the video. I didn't want to do this. Look, man, I like Crowder, but Crowder, I mean, you didn't want to do it. You recorded Jeremy Boring without him knowing. That's trust breaking, man. And I get it, but let's read. Viva Fry says, I like Crowder, but this is getting worse and worse for him. Who's going to now negotiate with him knowing that he will disclose the contract, defame you if he thinks he's being exploited, secretly record conversations that'll release afterward, win the battle, lose the war? Someone responded to Viva said, I love you, brother, and we definitely need to go kayak fishing, but he doesn't need any future employers. This makes Daily Wire look much worse than it makes Crowder look. Perhaps. But Steven Crowder needs employees. And if you're in the business of, look, Crowder, I disagree on this one. secretly recording people. I'm not, I don't know, that's dirty. Sorry, it just is. Look, I think Crowder's an important voice, but wow, dude. Look, you want to negotiate with somebody and you don't like what they have to offer. I've had so many business deals. I've talked with Rumble. I've talked with the Daily Wire. I've talked with The Blaze. I've talked with other big New York media companies that are woke and garbage, but that was a while ago. I never record these conversations. Now, to be fair, some of these conversations are garbage. And a lot of people are like, dude, you have to expose this and name names to show how the sausage is made so that people can know what's really going on. Fair point. Absolutely. And that I can understand why Crowder was doing it. He's viewing this from a very ideological lens. The Daily Wire is putting together these contracts that basically say you have to be able to produce on the big tech platforms as per their rules, or else we're not going to sign you. And that means big tech's rules are hard enforced. We don't do any of that here. This is why I say I agree with Crowder in that capacity. Don't agree with Crowder secretly recording Jeremy Boring. This is like, it's tough. It's tough. That's on Crowder, and those are his decisions. I'm not worried about talking to Crowder. I don't think Crowder's going to secretly record me or anything like that. But this is a difficult space to be in. These contracts, we don't have them. The people who work here at Timcast, I have no social media policy. We've had people here post like really shocking stuff on social media. And the only thing I've ever done has been like, hey, have you thought about why you posted that? And maybe the message isn't as clear as you think it's going to be. And the response I get is like, well, this is what I intended. And I'm like, no. And you know, I've had people say like, do you want me to take it down? No. We don't do that here. We don't do that at Timcast. You post whatever you want on social media. That causes problems. That's your thing. When we had Ye on the show and Ye stormed off, you know, I was pissed. Ye left. Kanye then goes on to Alex Jones and says a whole bunch of shocking things, basically saying how much he loves Nazis or whatever. And the point he was trying to make was to be Christ-like and to love everybody. But that was lost on a lot of people. And I still think, regardless of that, it was a sour move. We sent Shane Cashman. Shane was a fan of Ye, wanted to make the case for President Ye. I said, do it, write it up. Like, I'm not in the business of being like, oh no, we're scared of getting canceled. Don't do it. Oh no. Nah. I believe in Shane Cashman. I trust him. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's a good guy. And he wanted to do this. And I said, do your thing. We don't, you know, we're not the kind of business that's going to be like, don't do this, don't do that. What we tell people every day on Timcast IRL when they come in, we say things like, look, YouTube has rules. We have guidelines. If you break YouTube's rules, the show will cease to exist. That's up to you. I tell them this, like, look, we don't want to get banned. I don't want to get banned. I don't want to shut the company down. Is it worth sacrificing the 99 things we need to say for the one thing we want to say? It's tough. It's a very, very difficult position. My strategy, timcast.com, the speakeasy. We have the members only content. This is not ad supported. It costs us money to produce. We ask you to become members. As a member, you support us in more ways than just this. But then we can produce that content where Candace Owens went off last night on the members only show, going crazy hardcore on her views on vaccine, how she was injured and things like that. And of course, I always say, but talk to a doctor. Candace Owens is not a doctor or whatever. She has her views. She should be allowed to express those views. YouTube doesn't allow that. What can we do? Ban the show? Shut down our entire platform here? A lot of people say, Tim, go to Rumble. Rumble's great. I want Rumble to succeed. Rumble's not as big. I don't want to cede territory in the culture war on the largest battlefield. We may be routed in that they're stripping from us some things we can say, but we still have the opportunity on this platform, if we work within the corridors granted, to expand beyond and build something bigger. Meaning, Steven Crowder does this. He says what he can on the show. They still give him strikes anyway, but then he promotes Mug Club. The Daily Wire promotes DW+. Let me show you a bit more about what people are saying. Mike Cernovich. I think Mike Cernovich is one of the smartest guys in politics. I think Mike Cernovich is just generally one of the smartest guys. I take what he says seriously. He says, LMAO, yeah, tell the world you record all your calls with friends. That'll show people who's the good guy. This is the end result of being so fragile that you only have lackeys and yes men around you. No one to stop this stuff. My goodness. Let me pause there. Crowder said he's only ever recorded 3 people. And this was because of what he saw as, when it came to Jeremy Boring, as bad business practices that is extremely bad for the movement. I've talked to Crowder. I've told him, and I don't like airing people's private opinions or private conversations because I don't want to cause harm. I want to minimize harm. If Crowder told me something that I felt would prove malfeasance, I would absolutely be like, no way. Crowder called me. He said he was in it for the money, but that's not true. The only thing Crowder's ever said to me is everything he said publicly. He stands by what he says. He thinks what the Daily Wire is doing is bad for the movement in the long run. That's why I'm like, Candace goes off on Crowder, and I'm like, I don't believe it. Because I talked to Crowder, I talked to Jeremy. I don't think there's evil in this. I think there's ideological opposition. So Mike Cernovich, I think, is a very, very smart guy. I agree recording the phone call was bad. I don't like it at all. But I don't think, Crowder said he's only recorded 3 people. It's not like he's recording everybody. I am not concerned that if I talked with Crowder on the phone, he would secretly record me. I don't think it's good that he recorded Jeremy. Now, Jeremy over at The Quartering. The Quartering is a large YouTube channel for those that aren't familiar. I think many of you are. He's got 1.5 million subs, produces cultural commentary. He's been very defensive of Steven Crowder in agreement with how these contracts work. I think if you look at someone like The Quartering, if you look at someone like me, and if you look at someone like Crowder, you won't be surprised why we agree with Crowder in terms of how this contracting works. I think if you look at the Daily Wire and their team, Brett Cooper, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Candace Owens, you won't be surprised why they defend the Daily Wire. Look, all of those people signed the contract because they didn't have an issue with it. They worked it up. They did the business. They thought it made sense. They spent the money on the lawyers. It worked for them. For people like us, it didn't work. My view is more so, I negotiated with the Daily Wire. We were trying to figure out how we can maximize everything. It is completely normal. And I think it's awesome the Daily Wire was willing to have a conversation with us. We run a business. We are in a culture war. We want to win. So we said, is there something we can do that by our powers combined, we create a captain to win the culture war? We had the conversation, and ultimately it was determined. Jeremy said to me, I said to him, I don't know if anything like this could work, because it's not just, I want to make sure this is clear. Well, I'm not talking about the Daily Wire saying, Tim, we want to hire you. I'm talking about them saying, how can we make more money for you? Is there, ad sales we can do? Is there guests we can bring you? Can we help you with books? Can we help you with shows? Or can we license your show? These are all things that are part of a bigger conversation. I say, I don't think licensing IRL makes sense. We run our own membership platform. We have our own staff and everything like that. As for books and music, we need to have this conversation. There was a conversation about basically everything. The Daily Wire wants to be bigger. They want to make more money. They see an opportunity with Timcast to help us do things we can't do. I completely agree. In the end, we look at the terms and I say, guys, I don't think these terms can work for us because of how we run things and who we work with, but I wish you all the best success. And Jeremy said, I'm glad that we're friends. We're going to do a lot of awesome stuff together. Maybe this is just not the right arrangement for us. I said, you're right. In the past few months, I've been working with the Daily Wire on a music project. I don't want to say too much because, we want to make sure we get this one right. But I'm a big fan of the Daily Wire. I want them to succeed. I just don't like how these contracts work. I worked, and you know what? It's easy for me to say because I worked for Disney. Luke Rudkowski, We Are Change. You've seen him on Timcast IRL. He's got his own company. He's got his own website. He does not work for Timcast. He comes on the show in a voluntary capacity because it's good for his business. We've also had conversations. Luke, what can we do to bring you in, pay you? And he's like, I don't want to do that because I don't want anyone to have anything over my business because I run my own business. You're right. We Are Change is way older than Timcast. Substantially successful in terms of Luke's subscription platform, the videos he produces, the people he hires. Yeah, we can't work anything out transactionally. However, Luke, I want you on the show. One of my best friends with excellent perspectives, makes for great conversation. And Luke promotes his content on our show. So it's like he comes on in a guest capacity. So anyway, look, we don't do contracts the way the Daily Wire does. And I have no problem with them doing that. That's not how I would run things. Anyway, I've been ranting for 19 minutes and I haven't even shown you where the big concerns are. Mike Cernovich says, it's even worse. Crowder registered a domain to attack the Daily Wire after he had said, give me $120 million. And Daily Wire said, no, but let's stay friends. That's the point I wanted to say. That, Jeremy basically said, we'll keep being friends. We're going to win this one. We're going to do things different ways, but that's great. Jeremy's offered me up free advice. That's been really helpful to us because he's the CEO of a company 20 times bigger than us in a similar space. And I respect that. Crowder then calls Jeremy to talk about family, records the call, and releases a few seconds. I like Cernovich. I think it's a bit of a mischaracterization here. It is true. It's true that Steven Crowder registered. Stop Big Con. Right here on Who Is. Where is it? Oh, stopbigcon.com. 12/12/2022. He called Jeremy about a week ago, apparently, and recorded the phone call. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Look, man, here's my view. Daily Wire has to succeed. They're basically a big concrete wall. I don't, it's not my thing. You know, for those that are fans, World of Warcraft fans, I'll give you another analogy. I don't play, I don't know, Hunter. I don't play Warrior. I play Rogue. You know, these are the character I play in Warcraft goes stealth, lurks around. I like Overwatch, another video game. Whenever I do one-on-one or skirmish, Sombra. Okay, for those that don't know, Sombra can become invisible. I like characters where you can accumulate information and then strike at the weak point. This is how I like to do business. This is how I like to run things. The Daily Wire is not my vision of the future of what I would want to build. But they're producing content that is good for our message, our ideals. I don't completely agree with everything the Daily Wire says or does or their opinions of their hosts. Overwhelmingly massive net positive. What people are saying right now, Steven Crowder bought this domain in December before he left the Blaze. He knew he was going to come out and call out Big Con. He then recently shows this contract on his YouTube channel and says, this is bad. He did not call it the Daily Wire specifically. However, he gave certain clues that Candace said basically there was no way the Daily Wire could ignore it because everybody was saying the Daily Wire. The speculation is the Daily Wire started losing subscribers, so they decided to come out and address the contract and explain why they do what they do. I agree. The deal offered by the Daily Wire is right for the Daily Wire. I wouldn't do a deal like that. I would not advocate for someone to do a deal like that. I kind of glossed over this point, so I need to go back. It's easy for me to say. The reason I brought up Luke Rutkowski, I worked for Fusion. They paid me $250,000 a year for 2 years, plus $200,000 up front, plus a $325,000 discretionary budget for production and equipment. A lot of money. They also allotted me several staff members, which was also valued to the tune of millions of dollars. Overall, the total value of the negotiated contract was probably in the millions of dollars. Total compensation for me was, what does that come to? It was, it's like, it wasn't 200 flat. It was like 187 something. Netted me after taxes. The total amount was like 100 grand straight cash into my bank account. And I know, a lot of money. And so that's why I did it. Luke told me not to do it. And I'm like, Luke, I'm broke. Luke told me not to go to Vice. And I'm like, Luke, I'm broke. I can't just sit in my room and make YouTube videos for $5 per video. Did a deal with Vice. No term. I could quit whenever I wanted. I liked it. They paid me $85 to start. Within a few months, they upped it to $100 because I needed cash. I needed to save money. Slept on a couch most of the time. But I wanted to get a foundation. I needed someone who knew how to make VOD, video on demand, documentary. That was Vice. I went with them. Afterwards, Fusion offered me a contract, substantial money. And I said, I want to make this money, save it up, and then we'll see what happens. Luke told me not to do it. Go independent. I couldn't afford to just do it. By going with Vice and Fusion, I was pushed forward substantially. Not Fusion, Vice, yes. But Fusion gave me capital. After 2 years, I left Fusion. I had saved $200,000 in the bank. With that, I was beholden to no one. I didn't gain followers from it. I was basically in golden handcuffs at Fusion. But when I left, I now said, I can fly to Sweden. I can buy a computer. I can rent an apartment, and I don't have to work at a company for several years. Now's my opportunity to invest. It was a bad contract, in my opinion. That's why I'm averse to them. That's why I say I don't like how these businesses do these contracts. I can understand why Crowder says the same thing because he was in a contract with the Blaze. That being said, I truly understand. Brett Cooper made her response for the Daily Wire where she's like, you know, I would sign the contract all over again. She got 500,000 Instagram followers now. She's famous. In that released recording that Crowder made, Jeremy Boring says they can be wage slaves for a little bit. And then in the clip that Crowder puts out, he's like, they can leave and they're famous. Crowder says, no, you own everything. Jeremy says, we own what we paid for to make, but they'll leave famous. Jeremy Boring's right. Steven Crowder, I don't think, understood this. He says, no, but you own it in perpetuity. No, listen. We have Pop Culture Crisis. Brett and Mary are on that show. They're extremely talented individuals who make something absolutely amazing. Timcast Corporation owns that show and all of the content. I don't have a term contract with them. I have no social media clause. They're like telling them what they can or can't say. They can be as edgy as they want. And well, that's who they are, I guess. If that makes the show fail, well, then so be it. Here's my view. If Brett and Mary of Pop Culture Crisis go on social media, go on Pop Culture Crisis and get banned, their show no longer exists. Well, that was their choice. I lose all that money. C'est la vie. I'm investing in them because I believe in them. So I pay them a salary, pay for the equipment, and then they do the rest. They can leave anytime they want. They can say whatever they want. I don't tell them what to talk about, when to talk about it. I've never gone to them and say, hey guys, you got to avoid this subject. Because no. In fact, the only thing I've ever actually done with them is I went upstairs the other day. I was like, Alec Baldwin's being charged. Did you guys see this? Oh my God. I do things differently than the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire can do things however they want. If Mary goes on the show and she says, here's my opinion on X, and they get banned, well, here's what I would do. I'd keep paying them and I'd say, guys, we'll have to figure something else out. I'm not going to leave you hanging. But there's no show anymore. I don't know what to tell you. You got banned. The Daily Wire said to Crowder, if you get banned, we're going to dock your pay because we don't make money off you anymore. And I'm like, I get it. Jeremy says, how can we pay him if we're not making money? We just lose money. And it's $50 million. That's true. The budget for Pop Culture Crisis ain't $50 million. So it's easy for me to say, they don't got to worry about fee reductions. It's not that big of a show like Steven Crowder. Crowder also wasn't going to be an employee. But you also got to understand what Crowder's his concern here is membership, Mug Club. Crowder is going to be getting paying members. And here's an important point that no one's brought up. If Steven Crowder got banned from YouTube, the Daily Wire, if they'd signed him, if that put Steven Crowder's content exclusively on the Daily Wire, I truly believe they would gain another 200,000 paying members for two reasons. One, people like watching Crowder. If the only way they could get it was at thedailywire.com and DW+, they will go there. Getting banned from YouTube may be bad, but Crowder doesn't make that much money off YouTube as it is. Granted, it is a major vehicle for driving memberships. Well, if he got banned, the Daily Wire just needs to figure out how to market that to attract more people. Here's the other thing. If Steven Crowder got banned, people would ideologically become members at the Daily Wire. They would say, I am sick of big tech censorship. They have screwed over Steven enough. We're all going to sign up for the Daily Wire. Crowder is right about that. Thus, this contract is not good. That being said, my response is kind of like, Crowder, here's where I agree with him. Candace Owens said he got a standard term sheet. Here's our thoughts. He should bring it to his lawyer, mark it up, send it back. Yeah, maybe. Crowder's apparently his response that Jeremy Boring mentioned was that he said, I'm not redlining this. This is a terrible offer. Get me something real. I'm with Crowder on that one. I do. Like, the Daily Wire needed to do their due diligence. They needed to know, they do know, Crowder's already demonetized. They should know that Mug Club is the driving force behind what Crowder's trying to do. They know DW Plus is the driving force behind what they're trying to do. Everybody knows this. This is what y'all need to understand about why the deal with Daily Wire was bad and why I'm not a fan of this contract. They're going to Crowder and saying, we're going to dock you pay if you get banned from big tech, despite knowing the entire movement this space is making, be it the Daily Wire, be it Mug Club, be it Timcast, is memberships. That's why Crowder was mad. I'm driving memberships. You're taking away my 60% of my pay if I'm banned from big tech platforms. He's right. I don't like those deals, but I want the Daily Wire to succeed because they're a net positive force. You can't dock Crowder's pay if the driving force of the business today that he's doing, that you're doing, that we are doing is memberships. You get it? That's what Crowder is saying. So everyone's like, oh, Crowder's doing this for money. It's like, look, here's what Crowder's mad about. He has Mug Club with the Blaze. They're getting all those members. He doesn't leave with those members. That's what he's saying. And that's why I'm like, Crowder's right per the contract. I like the Daily Wire. I wouldn't do business, transactional, contractual business in this way. But what Crowder is saying is simple. If someone like Brett Cooper joins the Daily Wire and she generates 50,000 monthly paying members, Daily Wire keeps that forever. She gets to be famous. That's the Daily Wire's point. Yes, we signed a talent. We paid for the show because we want monthly paying members. Fair point, fair point. But hold on there a minute. Why then, in the contract, dock their pay if they get censored by YouTube? Crowder is right about that. What I don't like is that Crowder seemingly set up the Daily Wire. I shouldn't say it like that, but he planned this all out. He knew he was going to come after him. It's not my view. My view is if the Daily Wire wins, we win. Then, once Disney and Netflix are gone, I mean, come on, look, like Disney is thanking Chinese Uyghur concentration camp security forces. Netflix is running pedo garbage, and the Daily Wire is making content that's good. If you view the corporate structure of Hollywood and the Daily Wire in a similar space, and they're not identical, that's not fair to the Daily Wire, but there are similarities, well, that's a bad thing. But then I'm looking at the Daily Wire producing things that help us, and I'm like, keep doing your thing, guys. I'll be over here. If people want to go and take that deal, that's their choice. It's free market capitalism. Me, I won't do it. I will build my own thing in a different space. Crowder is like, no way. I don't think they should be able to amass such massive power and run machines this way. Reformer, revolutionary. Crowder's view is more of the Patreon locals view. If somebody does a deal, and actually my view too, because remember what I said? I talked to Crowder and I said, here's my offer, Crowder. Do you need help setting up your own website so that you can run your own subscription service? Because you gotta make your own money. And a lot of people have said that. Crowder wants to do that. Crowder wants to build something where if you do a deal with him, he builds you up, he makes you big, and you keep those members, you keep those subscribers. Understand this. The Daily Wire may make you famous, but the business model of the future is not sponsorships. After you leave, you will be able to build your own membership platform. Fact. But you have to save up money. So it's like, that's the deal. The Daily Wire says, we're going to make you famous. We're going to do everything in our power to do so because we want to make money off of that fame. After 2 years, after 3 years, after 4 years, you can leave and then run your business, your own business, or you can come back. That's not an evil deal. It's just hard business. Crowder wants to make something different, something that I agree with. This is what's so difficult for me. I don't want Crowder and the Daily Wire fighting. Candace is offended because he's basically saying that all their talent are signed to these slave contracts. I can understand why she'd be mad about that. I think for someone like Candace, clearly the deal works for her. The Daily Wire does so much of the heavy lifting. They help make her bigger and more famous, and she gets paid. That works for a lot of people. I think what I got to say to Crowder is, we've talked about this on Timcast IRL, that we want to make a decentralized Patreon. That Ian's working on this right now. You buy server space, you buy a domain, you download a free open source package, a software that you double click, boom, it expands in your server. Now you got your own Patreon style website. You own it. I'm assuming Ian's making the software for free. I don't know. The idea was to make it a free software anyone could just use. That's open source, that we will continually evolve, function as a nonprofit, take donations. Not to make money, but to change the world for the better. This software networks with anyone else using the software. So if Crowder used it and you became a member at louderwithcrowder.com using the software, there would be a recommended tab showing you similar content creators. There would be some kind of algorithm. And then you can find other creators, and that network would create something rivaling YouTube, or, maybe not, but because they have more money, but it would prevent permabans. Now, Crowder, on his website, he could say, I don't want this guy appearing in recommended, and he can blacklist or whitelist what he wants to appear in his recommended tab, or he can default and let the machine run it. It sounds like that's what he's ultimately wanting to build. We're trying to do it in a decentralized way. I don't want to own it. I don't want anyone. I don't want to create a network where my members mix with other members. I don't want to create a network where you sign up and you can get Crowder and Timcast in the same package. Why? Because I'm a fiercely independent individual, and I don't know how you will differentiate between who gets members and who doesn't. Crowder's view is, you can do it by views, you can do it by percentage. Or I should say that's the view I generally assume he's taking based on what, I don't know if he's talked about it, but a lot of people are saying that. I'll put it that way. Fans of his are saying, here's how you do it. Maybe, maybe not. I'd rather just have Timcast members. The Daily Wire says we have Daily Wire members. A lot of people have said we signed up for Jordan Peterson. A lot of people have said we signed up for Gina Carano, not for Ben Shapiro. I've heard people say, I don't like Ben Shapiro, but Candace Owens is fantastic. Well, that's why the Daily Wire has so many members. Because if you want to sign up for Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire. Candace Owens, Daily Wire. Matt Walsh, Daily Wire. A decentralized thing can work because you're still signing up for the individuals. Anyway, look, this is erupting in all over the internet. Here's a tweet from Lauren Chen. She said, "Who is right? Inspired by the poll on tonight's Timcast episode. Want to see if Twitter results are similar." You can clearly see that I clicked Daily Wire. I had to pick one of them, and I was like, ugh. The reason why I said that I clicked the Daily Wire, I had to think long and hard about this. I was like, man, Crowder, I've just gone over exactly why I agree with Crowder ideologically. The reason why I clicked the Daily Wire is because I really don't like that Crowder secretly recorded Jeremy Boring. And ultimately that was like, okay, look, I really just wanted to see the results. All right. I didn't want to have to choose between the two because we need Crowder and the Daily Wire to succeed. But Crowder genuinely does not like I'll put it this way too. The Daily Wire said, Jeremy Boring, we want Crowder to succeed. Please go to Mug Club Forever and sign up and support Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder secretly recorded Jeremy Boring and said, no, they're bad. The Daily Wire has taken a diplomatic approach that ultimately resulted in a net positive. Crowder is trying to stop what he views as bad contracting, and I agree with his logic on this one, but I think ultimately will just cause damage in the short term, maybe positivity in the long term. But I think the approach I'm taking with diplomacy and strategy is a short-term net positive and a long-term net positive. So ultimately, I had to just put it that way. But Steven, look, buddy, I'm a big fan. I think you're right ideologically on all of this stuff, and I want your vision to succeed in the long run. I just don't agree with the phone call stuff. But, Steven will be here to express his views and talk all about it and state his case. I want to make sure we're being fair to him. That being said, I posted a poll, 24,000 votes, said Crowder, DW, abstain. And I was surprised to see this, to be completely honest. Last night, when I did a poll on Timcast IRL, it was 74% for Crowder. The poll right now is 27% Crowder, 33% Daily Wire. The Daily Wire actually is slightly above Crowder in this regard. 39% abstain. Abstentions, I am with you on this one. I don't want these guys fighting. But, hey, look, Timcast is trending. Geez, it's the biggest I've ever been trending. 32,000. Yikes, what's going on? I got to bring up points that matter. Matt Walsh says, in the past 12 months, Daily Wire helped defeat the vax mandate, released one of the most culturally influential documentaries in years, took down Vanderbilt's child gender clinic, held the largest anti-gender ideology rally in the country, resulting in a ban on child mutilation. He goes on. But this is why I'm like, Daily Wire needs to succeed, man. I don't like how they're doing these contracts. Let me clarify and state it one more time. If the business they're building is memberships, why dock pay if you lose ad revenue from YouTube? Now it's fair. If you're not on YouTube, you lose that vehicle to drive more subscriptions. But I'm like, do the marketing, Daily Wire. That's your business. That's why you're taking the risk. But man, the Daily Wire has done good work. Nuance Bro says, hey, Crowder, will you release previous employees from their NDAs so they can give their thoughts about whether they think your contracts were fair and whether they think you were all about the movement? The Jared Monroe, how you been? I don't know the beef between Not Gay Jared and Crowder. Apparently he's under contract and he can't speak. It's an important point. Is Crowder running contracts that also are bad business, or is this mischaracterized? Does Crowder have standard business contracts? Or does Crowder have lockdown contracts that are as bad as the Daily Wire? I honestly don't know. I assume Crowder's defense would be, there's a big difference between telling someone we will dock you 60% if you're banned, despite the fact our business is based on memberships, and telling someone don't talk about internal workings at the company. I'm looking forward to having Crowder on Monday talk about all this, because I agree with Crowder on the ideological front. I think this is tough, right? It's like people are now saying Daily Wire's right because Candace Owens was able to come and make her case. Crowder needs to come and make his case. I want everybody to stop fighting. David Tienkin talks about how he ran an account for Crowder's dog, amassed lots of followers. They ultimately said, hand it over, we're going to delete it. All of his work was lost. He sides with the Daily Wire on this one. I got to keep this one 40 minutes. I got to wrap this one up. But I hope this was enlightening. I hope you now understand why I said I think Crowder is right. I hope you now understand why I still said in the poll I clicked the Daily Wire is right. It's not a one-for-one thing. It's not a black and white thing. It's not like Crowder came out and said this contract makes no sense. And everyone went, you know what, Crowder's right. The Daily Wire is doing extremely important and good things. I don't agree with how they handle contracts. So I said, no, thank you. Have a nice day. But please win. Please win. Diversity of tactics, as it were. It's tough. It is. I don't know, man. I understand what Crowder's saying. I really do. I really, really do. I would advise, I would tell people not to sign contracts that have these terms in them. I think the Daily Wire should probably change these contracts. The Daily Wire says you can amend them and make them more favorable to you, but not if you're a small creator like Crowder points out. It's going to require thousands of dollars in legal fees to get that redlined. That's why I'm like, I like the Daily Wire guys. They've been nothing but good to me. I didn't do a deal with them. They said, that's fine. I said, hey, you're a businessman. You don't owe me any favors. Jeremy said this. We don't owe Crowder a job. He doesn't owe us a show. Yep. Crowder doesn't like the bigger impact on the movement in general. I understand. My attitude is, if somebody wants to do a deal with the Daily Wire, that's on them. I didn't think it was a good deal. Others did. Reformer versus revolutionary. Anyway, man, I'm sure the story will develop substantially moving forward. Thanks for hearing me out for 40 plus minutes. Crowder will be on the show Monday to state his case and go over all these details. And I will stress, he makes a good point. He's not, but recording Jeremy, man, that is tough. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.